think it's time for the Chargers to flip the switch and use the pass game to open up the run game. Our offense proves it has no power, and we need to get our wide receivers more touches. If you look at the games we've won, QJ and Ladd McConkey have had around 3 to 5 catches per game. We did have some form of running game when Slater and Alt were healthy, but now Slater is injured as well as Alt. Don't know the severity of Slater's injury, but I have a feeling it's probably more serious than we know at the moment. And Slater's injury seems to be a result of overuse. Again, in my opinion, the offensive linemen have the most snaps of any position group each game, and that's why I thought Chargers should get another lineman in addition to a center, which they didn't get, and coincidentally we lost to a team that drafted a center, Steelers. They drafted Matt Frazier, and he's been a very good center for them, and they have a great running game. So since we didn't draft a center, that made it difficult to run, which forced us to pass, and the result of having to pass, Herbert can't step up in the pocket, Pipkins gets beat, Hayward falls into the side of Alt's knee, and now Alt is injured. And through 4 weeks, our defense is second overall in EPA, so it makes you wonder, is winning with the defense an antiquated method of winning? You think about Jim Harbaugh didn't win a national championship with Michigan until he got a 5-star quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. John Harbaugh hasn't won a Super Bowl since Joe Flacco was Super Bowl MVP when the Ravens won the Super Bowl. Jim Harbaugh had Colin Kaepernick. So you look around the league, you look at the teams that have won Super Bowls, teams that still haven't won Super Bowls, like the Bills. They have a defensive-minded coach, they have good defenses, they have a quarterback that can run, but they haven't been able to get over the top. Same with the Ravens. Patriots were able to win a lot of Super Bowls. They had a defensive-minded coach, but they had an elite processor in Tom Brady. Once they lost Tom Brady, that whole team went to dust. And so makes you wonder if Jim Harbaugh needs an elite processor in a quarterback to win games. Because right now, scoring 10 points through 2 games is not going to win you games. I don't care how good your defense is, 10 points is not going to get it done. Unless you're the Jets, of course. But sometimes I think that Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are conspiring to get rid of Justin Herbert because the play call is lackluster. They continually try to force power run game when it is not working. For example, this past game with the Chiefs, the first series they used motion, jet sweeps, screens, and it's creative. Tony Romo, it's like, wow, this is really creative. And then they go back to power run for the next 4 or 5 series until they get to the last series. It's like, oh shoot, we need a score. Let's go to trips. They go down and then they fail to score. And then we end up losing 10-17. So maybe they want to redistribute that money that they're paying the quarterback into their defense and win that way. But again, hasn't worked well for John Harbaugh, and it didn't work for Jim Harbaugh when he had Colin Kaepernick. So Rams won a Super Bowl with a Matt Stafford and a really good defense, which takes me to Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert through the first 4 weeks is exactly who he has been throughout his entire career. You look at his stats through 4 years, he's averaged, it's a 66.4 completion percentage. Right now he's at 64.8. Yards per attempt, 6.4. Yards per attempt over his career, 7.1. Big time throw percentage is 4.0 over his career. Right now it's 3.2. Turnover worthy percentage is 4.7 this year. Over his career, it's been 2.0. Adjusted percentage is 76.7 over his career. Right now it's 73.9. Drop percentage this year is 9.2. Drop percentage over his career is 6.4. Pressure to sack ratio is 16.7 this year, and over the course of his career is 14.7. His passer rating over his career is 95.5. This year it's 96.3. So he's about where he has been his entire career. This year he's injured and he has rookie wide receivers, new offensive coordinator. So that could explain the subtle differences in some of the stats. They're not exactly as good as they have been over the course of his career. If you look at best year that he did have, it was when he was running with the ball. So over the course of his career, he's had 84 first downs running the ball. In 23 he had 16, 22 he had 18, 21 he had 28, 2020 he had 20. This year he has 2. Again, he's injured, but makes you wonder, is he only elite when he's running the ball? Sometimes he seems like he's holding on to the ball too long, or he's not throwing to wide receivers when they're open. He's not throwing with anticipation. Could be that he doesn't trust some of his wide receivers, but again, that's all probably goes into being a good elite processor as a quarterback. Some of that falls on Greg Roman for not having good play calling, doesn't have good scheme. To call a slant when QJ is in press coverage is probably the dumbest thing I've ever seen at the professional level. That's not going to work, and almost leads me to believe that it was some form of desperation because you just don't see quarterbacks throwing slant routes in press coverage. So maybe the Chargers need to look for the future for a new quarterback, maybe trade for J.J. McCarthy, or look at maybe Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Jackson Dart is 6'2", 225, currently has a 81.9 adjusted percentage and has 141 passer rating in college right now. He's also fairly really good looking. He has curly locks, has like a little Thor thingy going on his eye. Looks good in the mustache too. There's also Haynes King. He is not as good looking, but he looks smart, and I like smart. The other thing that with Justin Herbert that has been apparent is his composure. He seems to get frustrated easily. He seems to, throwing your helmet on the bench is not what you want in the composure of a quarterback. They need to be ice cold. They need to have ice in their veins, and they need to be calm under pressure. And one thing I was thinking about Herbert, and I think I finally figured it out, is that he needs to feel pressure to get the ball out. Otherwise, he wants to hold on to the ball too long. If he's not feeling pressure, he's not throwing the ball. He seems to be looking for the perfect throw, and he needs pressure to get the ball out. And so some of the pressure could fall on him, and what it does is also puts a lot of pressure on your linemen, who then lose confidence in blocking. Sometimes you need to get the ball out quick to give the lineman a rest. You look at Tom Brady, always had a quick time to throw, always got the ball to his playmakers, and that relieves a lot of pressure off your offensive linemen, keeps them fresh throughout the game for when they need to run the ball or other moments like one of the fourth quarter so they can finish the game out strong. So I think we need to stick to spread offense, use our passing to open up the run game, because right now our offense has proven that it has no power, which leads me to Greg Roman. Greg Roman seems to have a false confidence in how he approaches the game. You heard in his press conference that he's confident in the guys that can step up, and that was very arrogant to say, because in the game we had tremendous amount of false starts. And so to go into a game versus the Chiefs and think that you're going to do well with the offensive lineman who you threw in that week is the most arrogant thing that I've probably ever heard. And you kind of hear it in the way Greg Roman speaks. He kind of gives you a false confidence. Yeah, it'll be fine. We'll be okay. I'm confident in our guys, when obviously that has been proven inaccurate through the first 4 weeks. So let's go through it. Week 1 versus the Raiders. First, it was running gap runs. The Raiders were doing a good job swim moving on our offensive linemen, and the adjustments weren't made until the second half when we switched to zone running and combo blocking and did better with those runs. The other issue was hot routes with the tight ends. You could see some wide receivers blocking, others running pass routes, and also routes going to the same spot. You saw that again in week 2 versus the Panthers. You saw QJ on a drag, then you saw Hayden Hurst doing a curl route right in front of him. And going into the Panthers game, we expected our run game to do well because Panthers were missing their best defensive linemen, so we expected that. Week 3, we get to the Steelers. We stuck to zone running too much, and we stuck to the power game too much. We kept going back to it when clearly it wasn't working. Steelers did a good job with zone run defense, particularly Cam Hayward, dominated our center and dominated our O-line. However, gap running and spread offense was working a little bit better. Not great, but better than zone runs, but we didn't run that enough. So, I don't want to be disrespectful of coaches. I don't want to be overly critical, but I just want to say that Greg Roman fucking sucks. And if I was Jim Harbaugh, I would script as many series of plays that I can. I would go with the analytics teams, and based on the defense I'm going to play, I would script my plays accordingly to how they play their defense on first, second, and third downs. That way you're always a step ahead. And we saw how well our offense ran when the plays were clearly scripted in that first series. Then we just fell apart after that. Greg Roman was known for getting plays in slow. He resorts to the power run game. When it wasn't working, we get to a 4th and 1, and we go to spread offense and try to pass the ball, which some of it falls on Justin Herbert to take a 9-yard drop back when it's 4th and 1 and 3 yards to score a touchdown, and you take a 9-yard drop. You're trying to do too much. So that has me concerned going into the Broncos after the bye week. The Broncos are operating at a high level. They shut down the Broncos to 7 points, and they scored 26 on them. They use every blade of grass, something I'd like to see the Chargers do. Every bush is tushed, every blade of grass is curated. We need to summon our inner most Hindu Kush, our Maui Wowie, our Pineapple Express, our Tangerine Dream, our Banana Skunk. This is Southern California. We know how to roll. Use QJ more, figure out how to get him open, figure out how to get him more targets. Same with Ladd. Use him complementary. Use one to open the other and the other to open the first one. And then at the goal line, we need to get creative. Use some trick plays, use Wildcat, bring in Easton Stick or Heineke, and maybe do some run plays with the quarterback. I think we also need to take more shots down the field, throw more in rhythm, but the offense needs to figure out a way to put up more than just 10 points, because through 2 games, it's obvious that our defense is not good enough, even though they are second best in EPA overall, to win games. 10 points is not going to do it. Greg Roman's versatility, all that talk about versatility, be able to switch linemen up, that's a crock of shit. I mean, when your guys that you've had since the start of training camp is having the most penalties, that's a problem. But some of that is also, hey, if your hard count is so hard that you're making your offense false start, then maybe don't make it as hard. So maybe if I was coach, I would tell Herbert, hey, don't make it too hard. And again, we need to at least get our offense moving the ball forward and not backwards. At least get your special teams in position to score a field goal. And then once you have a good enough lead, then you can run the ball more.